Oh, hey! Did you know that we suggest retesting your body composition generally about every 2 to 4 months? We use the InBody machine at the gym. If you want something that's even a little bit more accurate, you'd have to go to get a DEXA scan done, or that's what I would recommend, or hydrostatic weighing. But InBody for most people is like plenty accurate. Plus, it's free, easy in the gym. Like, can't get much more simple than that. But when people get retested, one of the conversations that comes up is like, okay, this is great, John, but what do these numbers mean and how do I actually make them better is kind of the more important question. And the challenge is I'm not really a big fan of this topic because it's really complicated, and it is and it's not. But it's a tough question to answer because there's so many variables that come into play. And in my experience, the last 21 years, this is a tough question to answer because people tend to put too much emphasis on what they're doing inside of the gym and not enough emphasis on what they are doing outside of the gym. So without going down too far of a rabbit hole, I'm going to try to talk really quick so I don't take up too much of your time and mention 9 different like big rocks or things to keep in mind to create an optimal environment so that you can see improvements in your body composition, which essentially means like gaining muscle, losing fat. Those are really the 2 common things. So first and foremost, I would say consistent strength training is number 1. It's like foundational. Yes, I'm biased. But I think there's nothing more important than consistent strength training routine. The consistency is the key. Gotta do 2 days a week minimum. 4 days a week on the high end. Anything beyond that, I think for most people, the bang for your buck, the ROI, just isn't worth it. But 2 to 3 days a week minimum. 3 days a week is kind of the sweet spot for most people. Again, consistent strength training is number 1. Number 2, lean protein. This is hands down the most common underconsumed macronutrient in my opinion, especially if you're trying to build muscle. If you're trying to build muscle, protein is key. The challenge is most people don't get enough protein. So ideally, just as like to keep math simple, if how much protein should you aim for? Most people aren't taking in enough, but I would say up to like 0.75 grams per pound of body weight. So someone that weighs 200 pounds, we want to take in about 150 grams. It's not an exact science, but again, that will put you in the ballpark. Most people would say, oh my gosh, that's so much. And I would say, yeah, it is. But this is, again, about creating an optimal environment for building lean muscle tissue, not just hitting the minimum guidelines. Number 3 would be water. So water makes everything better. It's critical for your muscles to function properly. It will help keep you full, so that which will help with appetite control, give more energy. There's about 10,000 other reasons that we're not going to get into. Number 4 would be sleep. This is something that I used to not give enough attention to when talking to clients, but now I talk about it all the time. You got to sleep. That's when the recovery process is taking place. It helps with 100 different things, but you got to get your sleep. Most people generally need at least 7 hours to kind of perform at their best. So sleep, don't discount it like I do and have done for years, and I'm getting better, but still got a room for improvement here. Piggybacking on sleep, because they kind of go hand in hand, I would say is stress. This is a tough one because there's so many external factors, life, work, family. There's a lot of factors that come into play, and it's also something that's kind of hard to measure. But when we're stressed, we tend to overeat. Which, I'm a stress eater, so I get it. Stress can also impact negatively our sleep, which impacts our recovery. Stress can also mess around with our hormone levels, which can lead to us storing more body fat. So don't discount your stress. If you're in a stressful point in your life, or you're going through like a really tough thing or whatever, project at work, just keep in mind that your stress is going to impact your results and the speed of results. So that's okay. You might just need to adjust your expectations, but we'll get through it together. So number 6 would be calorie intake. So this is where, this is kind of a 2-parter. So calorie intake, if fat loss is a priority, you cannot lose fat unless you're in a calorie deficit. So you have to consume more calories than you're burning. So you got to burn more calories. That's tough to do because labels are inaccurate. Most people eat more than they think they do. If you want to really dial this in, I would say keep a food journal and figure out exactly where you're at. You don't have to keep a food journal for the rest of your life, but it really can work wonders. On the flip side of that, where things get even more confusing, Number 7, calorie intake, is if gaining muscle is a priority, you cannot increase your lean muscle tissue without a calorie surplus. So if you're trying to lose body fat, you need to cut your calories back. If you're trying to gain muscle, you need to increase your calories a little bit. So they're kind of conflicting goals, which is why, one of my favorite sayings is the man who chases 2 rabbits goes hungry. There's some wisdom for you. So again, you kind of need to prioritize one. If you're trying to accomplish 2 goals at once, you can make some improvements, but again, you're not going to create an optimal environment for both situations. What I would suggest is to focus on one for a couple months and then switch your priority once you hit a goal to then aim to improve the other one, whether it's gaining muscle or losing fat. You pick your poison, whatever you want to do first. So depending on your goals and your situation. So number 8 is non-exercise activity. Thermogenesis. NEAT. No, that's actually the acronym. NEAT is what it stands for. It's a fancy way of looking at our activity level outside of our workouts. So basically think of this as how active are you throughout the day. This is where, again, most people put too much emphasis on how many calories they're burning during the workout and they don't put enough emphasis on how many calories they're burning over a 24-hour span or over the course of a week. So this is why I love step counters. I have my Oura Ring right here. I've had for, a couple of years. But love it. It's honestly one of the best gifts I've ever got, just because it tracks my sleep and my steps, which are 2 big things that are on this list. So again, you got to pay attention to how active you are over the course of the day. Easy way to do this would be to just measure your steps, and with iPhones and watches and everything, it's not that difficult to do. And then number 9, last but not least, is depending on your goal, and the things you mentioned above as far as what you need to do, you got to give yourself time. Yes, I understand. I'm not a patient person, but progress and change takes time. It takes so much longer, than what we think it does. A lot of people, the thing that ends up happening, I'll say, hey, you've been doing nothing for the last 20 years. What makes you think you're going to get in shape in like 2 months after doing nothing for 20 years? So you got to be patient. You got to trust the process, but change takes time, and there's a lot of factors working against us, just from, again, like stress and food and all kinds of other stuff. So again, there's obstacles that are standing in our way, but you got to, do what you can. So those are, again, 9 things. That's a lot to take in. I'm going to write all this out to give you kind of a checklist to go through. So what do you do from here? There's really 2 approaches. Review the list of the 9 things and see which one you think, I would say from there, you got 2 options here. You got the Dave Ramsey approach, which would be more the, pick one habit you're not currently executing, like the one thing that's probably the easiest for you, the low-hanging fruit. So it's kind of like I call it the Dave Ramsey approach, because his approach is, pay off the credit card with the lowest balance first, regardless of interest rates. Same thing here, regardless of impact, pick the thing that would be the easiest to implement, and just get started on it. That will help give you some momentum, which you can build on. So that's one approach. The opposite approach of that would be to, pick which habit you think would give you the greatest bang for your buck and have the largest impact on your success, regardless of how hard it may be to implement, and go all in on that. That will generally be harder to start, but you'll generally see a greater or a faster ROI on your efforts. So there you have it. That's a lot of stuff to throw at you. But again, if you're curious about how to make body composition changes, now you got a list of things to think about. So now you know.